All right, we have Brady Lynch back on the show. Now, let's preface this. First of all, your puppy's getting bigger. I just saw him poke his head.
Oh no,
And
that's the other one. That's the 2-year-old. Well, I
all
have
right,
the puppy. The puppy's right here, and he has gotten bigger since the last time. He's probably put
uh,
on 5 pounds.
all right. I was gonna say he's massive. So we had a great conversation, a lot of fun, great feedback from our listeners, and then you had reached out wanting to ask a few questions about owning a box, and I'll let you kind of dive into that. But I said, of course, let me just record it. For Fern and I get dozens of emails every day, and a lot of it is, how do you run a successful box? How do you do X? How do you do Y? How do you do Z? And I think it's nice to be able to point people there, and a lot of people are in your shoes where they've gotten their level 1, and now they're kind of like, what do I do? How do I run a box? How do I gain this experience? So I'm going to throw it to you, Brady, and this is going to be a reverse interview. You're going to ask me the questions. I'm going to answer it. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, let's do it.
So give us that brief kind of synopsis of what you were saying before we hit record, so people have an understanding of your mindset and where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I had a couple questions. Two big questions. One being how to open up a gym and make it successful. Not everybody is Rich Froning and Jason Kliepa, these people that are these awesome people. Let me stress that. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing them. I just told you before, I met Rich once at his competition at his gym, and he was a great dude. Just from the 3 seconds that I shook his hand, I felt like he was a jam up guy.
Jam up guy. Still using that
Yeah,
expression.
there we go.
Right?
But he, not everybody has those names where they've had a successful career and built an empire from their name. And again, great dude. He's earned every penny from his career. But what would how, I know you've opened and sold gyms. We talked about this a little bit last time. But how would you open, like, where would you start with opening up a gym from the get-go? And then, what are some things that you would do to maybe make your gym as successful as it could be in a time where fitness has grown immensely and CrossFit gyms are growing constantly? There's gyms opening up all the time, so there's more competition than ever, and it's only going to grow.
Well, can I interrupt and say, first, are you implying I don't have the athletic prowess that a Rich Froning or a Jason Khalifa have?
Absolutely, dude. Level 4. Are you kidding me?
Well, level 4 coach. Level 4 coach.
Yeah, level 4 coach, dude. You've got to have the fitness if you're an L4. Come on.
We had a member of North Naples CrossFit where I coached, and one of the owners, his name's Matt Torres, who's been on the show with his partner Dario. They're both phenomenal athletes, and people would come in, and then they would get coached by me, and they'd be like, wait, if those guys are level 2 and you're level 4, you must be really awesome. And I'm like, wait, let me be clear. Awesome coaching, not quite the fitness freaks that these guys are. But
exactly.
But certainly there's I think, like anything, like you're saying, they've earned that right. And I don't necessarily think a good athlete makes a good coach, to be quite honest. I think oftentimes it's the opposite. And I think that is partly to do with my success. I'm 5'3", according to my most recent physical, 5'2.5". So I'm not the biggest dude. I'm light. I'm 140 pounds. I've had to work hard for anything athletic I've achieved, which hasn't been all that much in this world. And I think because of that, I've learned how to do things. I mean, I've talked about it in my book, and I talked about it on the show. I didn't have a muscle up on day one. I had to work through it. I still work to clean 185 or 225. So certainly, I think if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not a great athlete, that doesn't mean you can't be a great coach. And it also doesn't mean you can't own a successful box. So, all that aside, you've asked a really broad question. So let's break it down a little bit. The first thing I would say, and you're asking for you. No, you're not asking for a friend, correct, Brady?
Yeah. I'm asking for me.
So, I would say let's treat it like reality. We're recording this June 2nd, 2020. If somebody wants to own a box, and despite the pandemic, let's kind of push that aside because there's a little bit of uncertainty there. But, someone wants to open a box, I would say first and foremost, really make sure this is what you want to do. And I get the impression from you that you've thought about that, and it is. But for a lot of people, I think, whether they're just starting CrossFit as an athlete or, someone that participates in CrossFit, or maybe even have their level one, it changes. It changes
Yeah.
big time when you make that step from coach to affiliate owner, just like it probably did when you went from athlete to coach. All of a sudden, eyeballs are on you more. You walk into the gym and it's not just your time away. It's even when you're not working, you're working,
Mm.
right? So, and I didn't ever have that at first because I opened my box before there were other boxes, so I never knew that. But then when I moved and became a coach, I realized, hey, there's a lot of fun to be had when I'm not the box owner, when I'm just a member or even just a coach. So you have to really make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I think a terrible misconception in the fitness world is, and I used to say this, and it's kind of like, if you believe in something like The Secret or manifestation, where people would say, you know, you can get involved in this, but you're never going to get rich. You're never going to make $1 million or whatever the expressions are.
Yeah.
And absolutely, you never will if that's your belief. But that would hold true in the gym. It would hold true in a business venture where you're the CEO. It can
Yeah.
hold true as a movie star. It's a really, you're only limited by your beliefs, and that was my belief for such a long time. And it was easy to fall into that trap when I was making $8 an hour at Gold's Gym. And in truth, when I opened my gym, I had, if you would have told me in 2020 what life would have been like, in 2006, I would have been like, this is crazy. I'm just opening this CrossFit thing so I can work a little less and make, a little bit more. If I would have been like, if you would have said, hey, you're going to make $48,000 a year doing it, I would have been like, yes, sign me up. That's, I had no delusions of what this would have become. So hopefully I'm answering your question, slowly but surely getting there. Step
Yeah.
one, step one, really make sure this is what you want to do. So have you thought about that?
I think about it just about every day.
What makes you so convinced that this is what you want to do?
um, it's just something that I don't really know exactly. It's just something that I love to do, and I would love to kind of make my career out of it. I mean, I spend an ample amount of time in the gym as a coach, as a coach, and then as an athlete. There's the old saying, treat the place that you work at like you own it. I try and clean up. I try and clean up as much as I can at my own gym. I actually remember back in the open when we retested the deadlift, handstand push-up, deadlift, handstand walk workout. Me and some buddies had retested it. The 4:30 class was getting ready to rock and roll that Monday, and a couple friends of mine had got to the handstand walk. There were chalk marks all over. And one of my gym owners, they didn't clean up their hand marks. Nothing bad against them. They just, they forgot that, just like our conversation before, they had forgot to clean up and they were about to leave. Well, one of my gym owners saw it, and the 4:30 class was about to get ready to roll. So he grabbed some spray and a hand towel and started cleaning. And then I saw it, and I immediately got up to start cleaning it, because I treat that place like it's my own. It's a place
That's impressive, and I certainly would have been lucky to have someone like you coaching because, yeah, I think a lot of people, especially coaches, if they're listening, it's like your job is not just to show up for this hour and leave. Like, you need to be a bigger part of this gym, and that means showing up 15 minutes before your class, probably sticking around for
yeah,
10 to 15 after, but also doing the little things. Like we used to say at Albany CrossFit, like, if you're not willing to take out the garbage, you don't get to coach here. And to be able to do those little things. So certainly it seems like you're in the right mindset, and I think a lot of people need to reflect on that because it's a business, it's a job, but I think, like anything, the more you care about it, the more things impact you. You have to deal with hundreds, hopefully, of different human beings and how they respond to different things, and their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions. So you have to be ready for that. Now, if you are ready for that, so say Brady's like, no, I'm ready and I want to do it. Okay, well, first things first is, I mean, there's a lot, maybe not first thing, but one thing that I always tell people they need to really think hard about is their location. Because when you open a new gym, the one guarantee, the one certainty you're going to have every month when it comes to bill is that rent.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this balance of, I'm starting a new business, so I don't want my rent to be astronomical, but at the same time, I'm confident and positive and want to grow to something.
Yeah.
So, you know, not really knowing where you are, as far as, what your options are, I would encourage people to find a place that they can start small but expand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably one of the biggest reasons I was successful, because I was never stressed about my rent. My rent was $850 when I first started. I got 10 members and I was already covering rent on day one,
Yeah. And so you're
right? But
saving money essentially.
correct. And not only are you saving money, but if you sign a lease that's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, it changes your mindset and it changes the way you run your business, because now I need to cover that. And that's just to break even.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of other expenses we're going to throw on top of that. But if your monthly rent is $4,000, you have a lot to overcome before even considering paying yourself. And it doesn't matter how much you love coaching. If you're coaching and living on the streets because you can't afford, rent for
Yeah.
yourself anymore, we've got a problem. So, and that can look like a few different things. It can look like, one, finding a building where you ask the landlord, hey, I'm only going to use this small amount of space. It might be a bigger open area, but hey, I'm only going to use these 800 square feet for now. Can I slowly grow into this entire space? And maybe it is a good time right now. Businesses are closing, and I'm sure there are landlords that want, tenants. So maybe that's one way. I was lucky, to do it on a racquetball court where I can expand to a second, third, fourth. But there's, or maybe it's a strip mall where the space next to you opens and now I can expand to that next door space. So first and foremost, find that location. And on top of that, consider the parking area.
Mm-hmm.
So two things to go along with that. One is, you can have this beautiful space that can accommodate 100 members, but you have 3 parking spots. That's a problem. And
Yeah.
obviously if you're in a metropolitan area, parking could be a whole different beast. But, where you live or where I wanted to have plenty of parking, so that was never an issue. But then also that parking lot doubles as additional space when needed.
Mm-hmm.
So you run Murph or you run some sort of community event, and your space inside might not be able to accommodate everybody. At least now outdoors you have, hundreds, if not thousands of square footage of usable space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Whenever I reach out to people who maybe have not opened up a business, but, have taken business classes or, whatever, the biggest thing that they always say is location. And just like you said, I mean, breaking even is the most important thing at the end of the day. Like, first and foremost, in my eyes, at least, is making sure that you can keep the lights on. And, it's just hard because, or at least for me, it's, I would love, when I open up a gym, as much as I would love to keep it like a mom and pop business where, everybody knows everybody, I would like to make a career out of it. And I just, maybe you might disagree with this, but I feel like it's very hard to keep that small church mom and pop feel at a gym that wants to have 200 people.
There's definitely a tipping point, I would say.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, and again, if I were to really think about it and do it again, I would go one of two directions, kind of like what you're saying, where it's that mom and pop feel, or this huge, massive space where I'm trying to get 1,000 people and running it,
Yeah.
with specialty classes and this, and you have to decide that. But from a stress perspective, that mom and pop idea is great. And think about it. Like, I think people forget, like, you really only need at most 100 members to run a very successful CrossFit affiliate.
Yeah.
And I say that for a few reasons. Like, when there's these CrossFits that feel like they're competing with one another, it's like, even in the smallest of towns, you have thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason you can't get 100, maybe even only 50 of them, because rent might be cheaper in that area,
Yeah.
and run a successful gym. If you open a gym and you had 100 people, and let's just to use even numbers, paying $200 a month, that's $20,000 a month. Even if your expenses are 10, which would be very high, you're making six figures. Like,
Yeah.
that's a great career to do something you love.
That's
And
true. I've never looked at it like that.
yeah, and I mean, and those numbers are typically, I would say, you're that $10,000 expense is much lower. So
Yeah.
there's certainly a point. When I say there's a tipping point, there's a tipping point to when the stress outweighs what you're bringing in, and there's a tipping point to where it does go from, like, it's very hard to treat this like a community vibe, and it's probably about 100. There's books out there, like a book, I believe it's called Tribes, by Seth Godin, where he talks about, like, there gets to be a number where it's the tribe inevitably splinters into multiple tribes.
Yeah.
And this goes back to kind of one of the things I would think about is, assuming you want to own a box, like, what do you want that culture to be? Do sounds like you have like a good religious spiritual practice. Like, do you want it to be like, hey, we're closed on Sundays, hey, we don't curse here, hey, kids are welcome, hey, all of these things? Great. And you need to preach that, no pun intended, from the
Yeah.
top down, right? Versus the guy that's opening because they are super into the sport of fitness and they want it to be a box where, don't bring your kid, and we curse and we scream
Yeah.
here and we take our shirts off. Like, it has to be something that you're passionate about. And I
Yeah.
don't think, like, that all, that latter would be what you're looking for. So you need to, and you need to impart those rules and those strategies on day one. That was
Yeah.
something I learned very early on. Like, all right, I'm opening my box. It's going to open on, July 1st of 2020. And there's only going to be a handful of people. But I know by the end of the year, I want 100 people, and I want people signing up for class, and I want them on time. Well, that has to be something you're willing to talk about on July 1st.
Yeah. That's good. So I listened to a Jason Cleopa on the MyFit podcast yesterday, and he had talked about how he had tried to partner with somebody, and their passions and reasoning and all that didn't really align, and or their core values. I'm sorry, their core values didn't really align. And I was thinking about that, and I said, people always say, like, what are your core values? And like, I value, like, friendship, people being trustworthy and all that. But when it came to, like, opening up my own gym, I was really asking myself, what would your core values be? And I was like, man, I just don't really know, because you need those core values for anything. In my opinion, you need core values in anything to make it, I guess, flourish, to make a business. Let's say it doesn't even have to be a CrossFit gym. Let's say you're opening up a new business. I think you need core values, so that way who the right people are to hire, to work with, etc.
Yeah, I think you need that for anything in life.
Yeah,
And your core values aren't going to shift when it comes to being with your family versus being with the gym. Like, you don't go from, like, oh, I'm really spiritual, but then when I'm at the gym, I'm not. Like,
yeah,
you are. That's why they're your core values.
yeah. And so I think everything that you just listed about me, just off the top of your head, if I open my own gym up tomorrow, those would be those were actually the things that I learned to appreciate, because the gym that I train at, both owners go to church regularly. Most of us go to the same church. And I mean, if you want to curse, that's fine, but we have kids around and parents. You can't be. I had to learn this. I mean, when I first started, I came in, like I said, on our last episode, I trained with a bunch of dudes that were around my age, and we said whatever, did whatever. So going into a gym where they're like, hey man, we don't do that. That was a huge culture shock. And now I appreciate it, because I would hate to be a member at a gym bringing in my 6-year-old kid, and they're playing explicit Drake or
Yeah.
whatever, and they're hearing F this, F that, all of it. It's just like, man, I don't want my kid to listen to this. He's only 7. Like, I don't. So I learned to appreciate that. Now, that's one thing that if I open up an affiliate now, especially now that you you mentioned off the top of your head, those are things that I would do and that I do believe in.
Well, and it's important too. It sounds like the owners did a good job of sticking by their culture. I've seen this too often where a box owner, it's so important to get every member to sign up that they will take on members that don't necessarily fit their culture, fit their vibe, and those members quickly, the expression of one bad apple can spoil the bunch. You get one dude coming in cursing, and people are just like put off and maybe stop. This guy comes into the 5 o'clock class, but you lose 3 people because they don't want to be around that. And
Mhm.
it's important for you to know that, and it's important for your coaches don't all have to have the same exact core values, and I would be surprised if they did, but they
Yeah.
have to at least respect yours. And there was a point in time where I had 20 coaches on staff, and we were all so different, but of course I was the leader, and
Yeah.
my core values kind of trumped everybody. But an example I talk about in the book is one of my coaches, Dean. He and I used to butt heads all the time, and it really stemmed from the fact that he would never show up to the gym for certain events, and typically these events were on Sundays. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until he and I, we went out for coffee one day, we sat down and we just got talking, and I realized how important, spirituality and family was to him. So Sundays were his family day where they'd go to church and hang out. But, he didn't tell me this on day one.
Yeah.
And once I understood that about him, it changed the way I thought about it. I never got mad at him anymore for not showing up, because it was important to him, and
Yeah.
I knew how important it was to him. So same principle here. You have to know what those values are, and I would encourage anyone listening to figure it out. There's apps, there's websites. I'm a big proponent of, there's a deck of cards that has your values on it that I used to do with myself and my coaches, by a company called the Inspire Network. I'll try to find the link for that, but you need to know them about yourself, but then also about your coaching staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. But then, uh, how do you, in a time where, and then I have another broad question that we can maybe ease into for a few minutes. So in a time where CrossFit as a sport, whether it's a fitness methodology or a competitive sport, it's clear that it's here to stay. In a time where gyms are opening up pretty much regularly, I'd say just around every corner, every city you go to, you can probably find a CrossFit gym to drop into. Um, how would you tell somebody to go about opening up that gym, and then how would you have them put out the best product that they can put out, I guess would be the best wording. Again, it's a very broad question.
Well, Coach Glassman spoke about it, and it's probably the question Fern and I have gotten asked the most over the years. It's like, how do you run a successful affiliate? And what people are really saying is like, give me this checklist. Like, what
Yeah.
time do I run classes? What programming do I follow? What equipment should I buy? And all of that is very important, but none is more important than, like Coach Glassman said, chasing excellence.
Yeah.
And he used to say, he would draw on the board a big E and a dollar sign, and he'd say, if you chase excellence, you'll find this dollar sign, but if you chase this dollar sign,
You're
you
never
won't
gonna.
necessarily. Exactly. And
Yeah.
and I think a lot of what we spoke about is really where that excellence comes from. And if you open a business that you're so passionate about, like you are, the excellence will be there, because you won't be able to do anything but that. You won't be able to not clean the floors, not clean the bathroom, not provide the best of the best for your members. So first and foremost, that's what it has to be about. It has to be, you have to go from, I'm a CrossFit athlete or a CrossFit coach, to I'm a box owner, and oftentimes that means I'm second behind the members, but I have to be willing to put out the best of the best. Now, in order to do that, you have to be smart about some things. Obviously, you know think about the programming you're putting out there. Think about why you're putting it out there. Think
Yeah.
about the equipment you buy. All of those little things play a role in that idea of chasing excellence. But you just can never be satisfied, and you always have to be going above and beyond for your members. It's a customer service business,
Yeah.
and you have to. Really, at the root of it, you have to enjoy being around people. I think part of the reason I like to check out and not be around people is because I spent so much of my time around them. And I would add this on top of that. I would say, make sure you don't neglect yourself either, or else you're, the old adage of, put your mask on first or fill your cup first. Like I spoke about that in my book too, where you could chase excellence so hard that you don't chase it for yourself. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. If that means probably taking one class a day, focusing on your nutrition, your mental health, getting a good night's sleep, all of those things need to be important.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I have one more question about this. I say as of right now, I have one more. Who knows? I might have 5 more after this. I don't know. Um, this might be a little controversial for some people, but do you think it's smart to go in with a partnership or just go in by yourself? Because for me, for example, I'm also in a rough spot because I don't know a dang thing about how to open up a business. I don't know anything
Well,
about it.
neither did I, neither did Fern, neither did Todd, neither did many of the successful box owners that started in 2007 or 2008, 9, 10, etc., or currently. So, I'm probably one of the few people that have done partnerships and affiliates 3 different ways. My first box, I owned 100%. My second box, I owned 80%. And my third box, I owned 50%. And there's pros and cons to each. One thing you have to be aware of when you go into a partnership with someone is it's basically a marriage, and it's a marriage unlike your typical marriage where you don't get to have sex with this person. Hey, maybe you do, but but typically it's more of a business relationship, which eliminates some of the fun, and you're stuck with this person. So all things being equal, I'd say it'd be great to own it 100%. Now, if you're in it with the right person, it can be wonderful. My second affiliate where I owned 80%, it didn't work out. I wound up selling my majority stake to my partner. We lost touch for quite a few years, and we were best friends prior to that. Now we've rekindled that, and we're talking again, so it's great. But as far as a partnership go, I'd say it was a failure. My second partnership, 50-50, I would consider a success. And I think part of that was we didn't have any expectations on friendship. We weren't really friends. We were just strictly business partners. And at that percentage of 50-50, we both cared.
Mm-hmm.
It's stressful being the partner that cares more,
Yeah.
especially if it's like pay is equal.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, if you want to be the majority owner, so you have someone else who can coach. Because if you're 100% owner, that might mean there's no vacation for a while. That might mean there's no weekends for a while. So you have to be aware of that. But and also financially, right? You have to be aware of, do you have the money to start this? I would say one thing I've seen over the years that I would encourage people not to do is take on investors. So whether you decide to have a partner that's putting in the sweat equity and the work like you are is one thing. I would recommend against someone saying, "Hey, I'm the main owner, but people own part of it because they gave me money." Because really, from a affiliate perspective, while you do need money, you need time more than anything. You need help running classes. You need help making decisions. You need help cleaning the gym. You can get by with less money, especially if, like I said earlier, you start small. And that's probably one of the other pieces of advice that I'd like to get out there is don't overdo it. Start small. You can always expand. And that goes for anything. The number of classes you're running, the number of days you're open, the number of barbells you have. Obviously right now it's a little harder to get equipment, but
Yeah.
in typical times, you place an order with Rogue and you have new barbells at your door, 3 days later.
Yeah.
Don't buy 20 barbells when you're opening your affiliate on day one. I would have a very structured set of equipment. I would be doing my own programming, or even if you hire someone else's programming, but really have an idea of exactly how much equipment you have. I would assume you're running classes of maybe 8 to 12, so you get maybe 6 men's bar, 6 women's bar, because you don't know how many men and women are going to be there. You get same deal for medicine balls. You get enough that most men can go RX. You get women's weights, you get scaled weights. You don't need 12 of everything, because you're most likely never going to have 12 RX men or 12 RX women.
Yeah.
So be smart about that, and then don't worry about getting more equipment to accommodate the programming. Make the programming accommodate your equipment.
That's good. That's one thing I've never thought about. Programming, I've thought about a little bit whenever the day comes that I finally get to open up my gym. Actually, I was talking about programming today with somebody. I said, if I open up a gym or if I did programming and I couldn't afford to pay for specific programming, like my gym right now, we're following NC Fit and love it. Like the workouts are good. And then on top of that, from a coaching perspective, Jason gives us every piece of the entire day. He gives us a warm up, a cool down if there is one. He gives us a full breakdown of the stimulus and what we're looking for in our athletes for the specific workout for that day. That's great and all, but I think there's a lot that goes into following a specific program because there's structure in those workouts. So that's one thing that I really enjoy about following a program is that there's structure. Some
And
people.
I'm all for that, whether it's NC Fit, Ham Plan, warm up and workouts. There's great programming out there. Follow that, look at that, but just be ahead of it. So you look at a day. So the example I've used multiple times, you can use like a workout like Jackie.
Yeah.
Jackie is a 1,000-meter row, 50 thrusters with an empty bar, 30 pull-ups. Now, we've run Jackie back in the day when I had my gym, and we used to cap classes at 16 and we had 8 rowers. So that really means, okay, we're running Jackie. I need to think about this. And that doesn't mean you don't do Jackie, or that doesn't mean you go out and buy 8 more rowers. It just means you think, okay, NC Fit is programming Jackie and it's probably starting at like 40 minutes into class because it should be a 10-minute or less workout, but we have to stagger people in. So we have to adjust the programming. Now, your members don't know that. Your members don't see that. Just you and your coaching staff see that. So that's what I would approach it from, or if we wanted to do rowing, it would have to be intervals. It could be a you go, I go type of thing. So again, get good programming, follow something, and it's probably something I would encourage people to pay for
Yeah.
because you have a finite amount of time. $150 or $200 or whatever the programming costs is money well spent, but just be smart about it when it comes to the class and when it comes to putting that programming into action.
Yeah, that's good. All right, now I have one more very broad question. It's actually it's who you work for. How would somebody who has a level 1 and has aspirations of, I have aspirations of owning a gym. We just talked about this, but I also have aspirations of working at CrossFit closely with CrossFit HQ, whether it's seminar staff or some other specific job in the business. Let's just go ahead and cut it down to seminar staff. It's not 2007 where you can go take your level 1 and then you have Greg Glassman running it with Dave Castro there on staff, and you can just kind of become friends with them in a sense just from a conversation, and then bump into them again and they're like, hey, you want to come work for this CrossFit thing? I'm joking, but it's not in the early days where you can just meet people that are on seminar staff or work for HQ. How would somebody who has their level 1 would like to take their level 2 and continue to grow, read more, take the level 3 and all that, like how do you go about getting on seminar staff basically?
Yeah, and it was different back in the day. It was a smaller world. People did get to know you. I ran a competition in my parking lot in 2008, and from that, Dave Castro knew who I was, and I got involved in regionals and the games and other aspects. But it is different right now. So if someone's interested in seminar staff, the very first thing we tell them is you have to have your level 3. So right there, it's like, okay, you need to achieve that, and it's prestigious enough that it's noted when someone gets it. I mean, especially now that social media is back up for CrossFit training, they even put out there all the people that have passed the level 3, in recent months, and they continue to keep that updated. So if you're asking Brady, I'd say, cool, go take your level 2 and then plan to take your level 3 reasonably. Like, hey, maybe early 2021, would be the soonest I would tell you. You need some, who knows when you're going to have a level 2 nearby you, then you're going to pass that. And then you need to put the time into study. And you also need to have the mandatory minimum number of coaching hours, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have. So step one is pass your level 3, which is a big task, right? Because a lot of people might only have their level 1, or even if they have their level 2, it's a tough test. So go past your level 3, and at that point, there's a few things you could be doing. For one, when you do take your level 2, do a good job. That'll get noted. Every weekend when we coach level 2s, we see a lot of people kind of average. Like, hey, you're not terrible, but you're also not good. And the ones that stand out are like, wow, you did really well. I can tell you coach. I can tell you're passionate about it. I can tell you're putting the hours into it. So, when you go take your level 2, be sure that you're prepared. Then go past your level 3, and then it's really just a matter of reaching out to CrossFit. I'm not sure where on the site these days, but probably somewhere under seminars, or, of course, you can reach out to Fern or myself and we'll put you in the right direction. But it, it it's somewhat luck of the draw, meaning, hey, does that area of the world need more trainers for seminar staff? And, do they need more men? Do they need more women? So it is a matter of right place, right time. But I can tell you, having been involved for 10 years, it, every area eventually opens up.
Yeah.
Florida might have been saturated a year ago. 3 of us left for Colorado. Now, if you live in the Florida, region, there's maybe more of an opportunity, where maybe now in Colorado, not so much. So, it's a matter of right place, right time, and then just being consistent, following up with them, letting them know that you're interested. And then when it's time and you get that opportunity to do your first internship, just crush it. It's doable for anyone. It really is. You just,
Yeah.
the hardest part is passing that level 3. But once you do that, you've taken a big step, and now it's, just getting in touch and getting that opportunity to show up and intern at your first level 1.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. That gave that enlightened me more than I could even imagine, really. It's, CrossFit has gotten so big, and if, I'm knee deep into it. I love everything about it. I feel like it's this, it's on this pedestal, and, it feels impossible to reach to, and in a sense, just because of how big it's gotten, I feel like, or at least for me, that's how I felt. And that was those that and how to run a gym and how to open up a gym were two of the big questions that I wanted to ask you, because I had, especially the how to get in with seminar staff and HQ. Like, that's, I wouldn't have even have known where to start, really.
Well, and CrossFit's this awesome company that really rewards people for putting in the time, putting in the effort. I've seen it on seminar staff, but I've also seen it in other roles. The people that are high up at the games these days are the people that have been volunteering. Look at someone like Justin Berg, who's the general manager of the CrossFit Games. This amazingly huge event. He started by volunteering as a judge in 2008. Look at someone like Dave Castro. He started by, there's an old video out there, I'm sure it's still around, where Coach Glassman's like, this guy just kept showing up every weekend. And I realized on the weekends he'd show up, seminars would run better. So we asked him to stay. It's the same thing. I've seen that there's this whole crew of judges. I'm sure some of them listen to the show, that bounce around from Wadapalooza to the Granite Games to, the West Coast Classic, to all these different events. And it's like, they're the ones that get asked to judge at the games. They're the one that get asked to come back. So it's like anything in life. If you put in the time, you put in the effort, and you really show people that you care about it, it's going to get recognized. It might not be as fast as you want it, but it will
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, that's good. And, like I said, I didn't hop on here asking you, but pretty much asking you to put in a good word for me, so that way they can, I know it's going to take years, and I understand that, but, it sucks knowing that, or I say it sucks. It was hard knowing that you want to do something, knowing that it would take you forever, but you had no idea where to start. And that was really the basis on why I reached back out to you and said, hey, how do I do this?
Yeah. And I mean, I've been asked that question, as has everyone on staff, probably at least once every weekend, and plenty of times in between. And it's funny to see the people that ask that, and then one day you're working beside them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a different journey in 2007 than it is in 2020, but it's still a possible journey.
Yeah.
It might be yeah, I didn't have to pass my level 3 to get on staff, where now you do, but at the same time, we wouldn't want someone that's not willing to put in that work. And that's
Yeah.
really the, talk about culture and talk about value. That is the value of staff. We know that anyone that we work with, it's like a trust. It's very trickle down from the Castros and that military mindset of, I need to know that I can trust you and you have my back. And when someone passes their level 3, they're showing and they're saying to me, I care enough about this. I know what it took to pass that, like, and you did the same. So, we want you a part of this team.
Awesome. That's good. That's good.
So 2022, you'll have a box and you'll be on CrossFit staff. Is that a goal?
I mean, if it's 2022 or 2029, it'll happen.
All right. Well, that's where it's got to start. And, it's like anything, the juice is worth the squeeze. It's going to be hard, but you know, having had a couple conversations with you now, I have no doubt that you're going to put in the hard work, and I have no doubt that with both of those endeavors, you'll be successful. So, and
I hope.
you know that I'm here for you, that Fern's here for you, that the CrossFit community as a whole is here for you. So,
Speaking
you
of
ever have,
Fern, I need to talk to that guy. I just want to sit down and hear about his basketball career.
well, all you have got to do is listen to any episode, and you can hear about that.
I think it's awesome that he was a Division I college basketball player.
I'm gonna edit this part out of the show.
You're more fit, but it's so cool.
It's funny. I think if you lined up Fern, Todd, and myself, I'd say most people would look at us, simply look and point at me as the fittest. I'd like to say I have the fittest looking physique, but those two are exceptionally fit, especially when you look at their physique. Fern especially. I think when you've been an athlete and you've been fit your entire life, some of that just never goes away. And Fern's a military guy, Division I athlete, so he definitely has the mental strength to be fit. But as far as conversation goes, I'm the guy you want to be talking to.
That's right.
Well, I'm glad I can help, Brady. And of course, for you or for anyone listening, if you have questions like this, it's fun. We often do the question asking, but it's nice to be asked. And it's, the reason I wanted you to come on the show again is because you're not the only one. And now when someone sends us an email, when someone sends us a DM, I can shoot them a link to this episode and be like, go listen. So served many purposes, which is one thing you'll have to do as a box owner. You'll have to multitask and multi-purpose. So I'm just teaching you what I've learned.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks for coming on again. Thanks for asking some great questions. And I look forward to chatting with you again. I look forward to seeing you at your box and on staff one day.
Yep, come on.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are. something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't already, do us a favor, head over to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback for either Fern or myself, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on Instagram at Best Hour of Their Day. Once again, we couldn't do this without the amazing community, and you are a part of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Best Hour of Their Day.